Hi, everybody. Alan Arnette here with another podcast on the blog on alanarnette.com. It is Sunday, May the 11th, 2025, and this is the podcast for the Everest climbing season as well as for the other 8,000-meter mountains in Nepal and Tibet. So, we got summits. Boy, do we ever have summits. We've got summits on 4 8,000-meter mountains of just over the last handful of days. The rope teams got the fixed line to the summit first on the Nepal side, and then today, the 11th, on the Tibetan side. It was a team of 20 Chinese and Tibetans that summited. Adrian Bollinger sent me a great picture of them that he took from an advanced base camp, and it shows just a handful of people up there. They're little bitty dots. It just shows you how big that mountain is. But it's great that the fixed lines got up there. The weather has kind of relented a little bit, so the winds have dropped off, and it looks like we're going to be having a pretty good summit week coming up. It looks like there's 456 people, foreigners that have an Everest permit. There's 107 on Lhotse have permits, but a lot of those are going to be climbing Everest, then Lhotse, as we discussed last week. So, it's going to be a busy week, so stay tuned. I'm also going to do a narrative on this one about going from Camp 3 up to the South Col. We'll get there in just a second. I talked to Michael Fagan of Everest Weather. Michael has been doing weather forecasting for climbers around the world for literally decades. He provided our forecast for me when I summited in 2011 and other times too, also for K2 with Garrett Madison. But he talks about that between May 12th and May 18th, that the jet stream is going to stay away from Everest. However, some of the forecasts, there's different models. There's a European model, there's a US model, there's a Korean model, there's a Navy model, and Michael looks at all those different models and then uses his experience to integrate that to come up with a forecast. That's one of the problems when you look at some of these computerized forecasts. You really don't know what model they're using. Some of them will reveal what models they use. You can do an ensemble and compare the various different models because there will be a difference. Some of them will show winds gusting at 50 miles an hour, and others will show they'll only gusting to 20 miles an hour that day. So I think it takes a human to evaluate that and then come up with what their best guess is based upon their best forecast, not guess, forecast is scientific, Alan, based upon their experience and what they're also hearing from the climbers on the mountain. But anyway, it looks like things are going to be pretty good this upcoming week. Luckily, there's no storms forming in the Bay of Bengal through May 18th, so that's always a good sign as well. Because the monsoons they're coming. Kathmandu has had a pretty significant rainfall. A couple of about 7, maybe 10 days ago, they had major flooding in the streets. So there was all sorts of talks about an early monsoon coming. But let's not borrow trouble, as my mom would always say. Okay, so let's see. We have summits on Everest. First off, it was the rope team that got up there. The great Sherpas from 8K Expeditions. They summited, I believe it was on Friday, and then that was quickly followed by Ecuadorian Patricio Arvala. He summited without O's, becoming the first member to reach the summit this season. 14 Peaks got 8 people up there, 3 Chinese climbers supported by 5 Sherpas, along with the first female climber from Kyrgyzstan, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce her last name. Her first name is Asel. Azel, I guess. But anyway, she summited on May the 11th. So that makes for 16 people now have summited Everest thus far. And that's just the beginning of it. Katie bar the door. We're going to see tons coming up. Lucas Frutenbach, his team has members on both sides. He's got, I think he has 6 different sub teams. And of course, he's also the one that's running the Xenon climb. And they should be heading up to Everest any day now because the weather is looking pretty good. Remember, they've already used the Xenon to add along with the hypoxico tents, those 2 techniques to build up their red blood cells. They went to Germany and they had different sessions with the Xenon. And now, as soon as Lucas gives them the word, they're going to fly to Kathmandu, helicopter to base camp, and begin a direct summit push. So we'll be following that closely as everybody is really interested to see how that's going to turn out. But he says that they got to, on the north side, they got up to the North Col for their rotation, and now they're back down to base camp, or they're descending back to base camp, and they're waiting for the best window on the south side. So they're really in action, as is Nepal, on the Tibetan side, sorry, Alpenglow, Adrian Bollinger, he's they were up to advanced base camp, and they probably also made a rotation up to the North Col. I know the Climb by Ya has as well, plus the Chinese team. So the north side's moving along pretty nicely. On the Nepal side, like I said, there's like 47 teams over there, and this is the situation where it always the ropes get up there, and then it becomes a game of strategy. Are you a fast follower? Are you going to try to get in this first weather window, or are you going to try to wait until the weather clears, and then you're going to go up maybe at the very last minute before the monsoons come in? So it's all over the map, and we're going to see lots of teams doing different strategies all throughout this entire season. One person in particular that people were following was American Tyler Andrews. He was trying to set a speed record by running from Everest Base Camp without using supplemental oxygen to the summit on the Nepal side. He apparently turned around just above Camp 3, according to his GPS tracker. There's no word on what happened, and there's also no word as to whether he's going to try again. I just don't know. So we'll have to wait and see what the actual facts are rather than speculating. But that leaves Carl Igoloff, who he's the only other one that was trying to the only other one. There's only two of them, and it's very rare to have this happening anyway. But nonetheless, at least Carlos being a speed climber that's going to try to go up as well. He's with the Fruitenbach South team, Nepal team. So next week, we know what to look for. Lots of summits. Let's hope the winds cooperate. As far as the other 8,000 meter mountains, oh my gosh, tons of summits all across there. Of course, we know Annapurna is over, but the action has moved to Makalu, Kanchenjunga, and Dhaulagiri. The Seven Summits Trek team, they summited a German female climber, Anja Blanca. She's 34 years old, and she's on track to becoming the only German female to summit all 14 of the 8,000 meter mountains. She only needs Choi and Shish at this point. But they reported 13 summits, and also Pakistani sensation Sahid Ali Sandapara. He summited without using oxygen. Really happy for this young man. You may remember that he lost his father on K2 a few years back, but he has used that tragedy to go on and make a real good name for himself in the world of climbing. So well done, Sahid. On Kanchenjunga, it looks like there were 11 summits. Pioneer Adventures and Seven Summits Treks both put people on the top. But I'm getting a report that there's two climbers that need rescue, a French and a British national. Don't know any of the details about this, but let's hope that they're safe. Supposedly Sherpas have been dispatched to try to go render aid. On Makalu, there's been 57 summits. That includes the rope team that summited on a few days ago, actually, on May 9th. But better weather came, and so Seven Summits Treks, again, they put 15 people on the top of Makalu, 8K Expeditions. This is really kind of cool. They had 5 siblings that all summited together from the same family, including a father-daughter combination. I think that's really cool. But I've got all the names on my blog on the website. Let's see. And also there was a Ukrainian that summited. 14 Peaks had 5 people that summited. Elite had 1 person that summited, but they didn't mention anybody else. I assume that person had a Sherpa with them. And then last week, Australian Matthew Scholes, he summited without any Sherpa support and no fixed ropes since they were buried in fresh snow. So, congratulations to Matt on doing that. So several teams remain on the mountain ready to summit, including Madison Mountaineering on Makalu. Let's see, Altitude Junkies and Elite are over on Kanchenjunga. They still are, they want to summit here soon. So there's still going to be a lot of action across all the 8,000 meter mountains going into the next week. So far, touch grass, cross, whatever you do, that we've only had 1 death. Sadly, that was a Nepali that died early April in base camp, and no real clue. It was said it was attributed to altitude sickness. So thus far, this has been a safe season, and I'm just so thankful for that. And let's hope that it continues that way. Okay, that's the update. So let's get into a narrative about climbing into the death zone. So the climb from Camp 2 to Camp 3 was tough. You thought that your acclimatization rotation and spending a night at 3 last week, that would send you being fully acclimatized and ready. But Everest seems to have an endless bag of tricks. You arrived at Camp 3, fell into your tent before your teammate arrived. You share tents above Everest Base Camp. You appreciated the alone time. Focus on your plan, reflect on the day, give yourself that pep talk. Keep going. Short, simple steps. This is your time. Ugh. You slump down on top of your down sleeping bag, your head hitting the icy tent floor. Closing your eyes, you think about last year. You think about home, training, money. You also think about your why. You were told that when you start having doubts, think about why you're there. What's your purpose for climbing Mount Everest? Yeah, yeah. Now I remember. Your why has gotten you through many difficult training days on other peaks like Aconcagua, Denali, Amida Blanc, and more. But this was the Everest. It doesn't get any higher. It maybe get harder, but not higher. And with each step, you lose more oxygen. Hey, you alive in there? Your teammate arrives full of energy and trash talk. Yeah, but I'm beat, you mumble. Come on, drink some water and let's boil some water. Water for the dehydrated must be brought up. Soon the jet boils, hissing, melting snow chunks you collected just outside the tent. Reaching inside your pack, you find the Mountain House home-style chicken noodle casserole. You smile to yourself and you giggle lightly that you passed on the Korean-style beef and the classic chili with beef meals. You've climbed enough to know that your body has trouble digesting anything spicy and getting HAFE, high altitude flatulence. Your tent mate wouldn't appreciate that either. Above 8,000 meters is not the place to have an intestinal accident in a full on down suit. Eating slowly, sitting cross legged, peering out the open door, you're gobsmacked by the view. There's Choyu, the world's sixth highest peak at 26,864 feet with a signature flat summit plateau. It may be the largest summit area of any of the 8,000ers. A helicopter could easily land up there. You gently sweep your spork into the pouch, bringing a spoonful of the unheavenly concoction into your mouth. Hey, this isn't too bad. Your tent mate nods while chewing like a cow chews her cud. A Sherpa drops by with a container of water. Fill up your bottles. Drink as much as you can. We won't get much of the coal, he says. This worries you, as you thought you could top off your water bottles and leave for the summit with 2, maybe even 3 liters. Well, not much you can do about it now. As the sun sets over Choi, the golden hour emerges. You stare at the long gold horizon that gets ever thinner as the sun goes to bed for the night. Temperature goes from blazing to serious freezer conditions in seconds. Stashing away the trash in your pack, you reach for the nasal cannula, a plastic tube with 2 nozzles, one for each nostril. This will deliver oxygen at a rate of half a liter a minute throughout the night, making it slightly more comfortable. Tomorrow, you'll switch to a summit oxygen mask and set the flow rate to 2 liters per minute. That's what you'll need for your climbing. Thinking about your first climb using supplemental oxygen, you remember waking up with your mask full of wet, slimy drool that had gathered in your hard plastic mask covering your mouth and nose. You're glad to use this lighter system to sleep more comfortably. Well, that's kind of a stretch at 7,000 meters to sleep comfortably at all. It takes a while, but eventually you drift off to a methodical sound of snores emerging from your neighbor's tent. The night passes with glacial speed. Dawn comes early. Yet the sun remains hidden behind the enormous Lhotse mountain. You won't feel its warm, soothing rays until you reach the top of the Geneva Spur on the way to Camp 4. Repeating the dinner routine, you make what is considered breakfast by rehydrating some powdered eggs and choking down a breakfast bar. Yeah, those 400 calories should be enough for my 5-hour climb to the Col. You crassly think to yourself. You're allowed. Your tent mate's asleep. Turning your sleeping bag inside out, you stuff it into the compression sack. This is a trick your coach told you back home. It reduces the volume by 20%, saving room in your pack for the necessities needed for the summit push. Wearing your full down suit, you slip your pack on, pull the oxygen mask over your face, ready to go. You look around. Damn, I forgot to put my crampons on. You almost start laughing at how you could make such a basic mistake. But it dawns on you where you are, how you slept, how little you've had to eat and drink. It's taken a mental toll, and you still have 5,538 feet to go, more than a mile. Finally, all dressed up and ready to go, Dalo comes over to check on you. You ready? You nod. You clip a carabiner onto the fixed rope, slide your ascender behind the beaner, and take a step higher. Thanks to the hundreds of climbers before you, there's a well-trodden boot path on the face. Looking higher, you realize it's the steepest section thus far. Just after the Bertram, where Lhotse face meets the Western Cone, it was steep for a short while. But now this looks more like a ladder than stairs. Short, simple steps. Short, simple steps. This mantra has served you well in these kind of situations. Now you're in the moment. Lost are the doubts, the fears, the anticipation. You focus on efficient footwork, sliding the ascender smoothly up the rope. All you hear is a soft hiss of life-saving energy entering your mask, and your breathing, steady, almost melodious. The village of the C3 tents is left behind as you reach a section of the boot path that turns left towards the yellow band. Thankfully, the mountain takes pity on you, and the angle relents. You pause to look around, something you always do, knowing that looking at where you came from helps you appreciate where you're going. You see the vastness of the Western Cone, the tiny yellow spots of yellow tents marking Camps 1 and Camp 2, a line of Sherpas ferrying supplies or supporting their charges so they make their way to the summit. You think about the difficulty of having so many people in such a remote part of the planet. You feel tiny. You think about your why. You're now in a line of other climbers. No one speaks. Everyone is focused on their world. The path picks up as you approach the limestone band as part of the Himalaya. Looking at the yellow rock, it's smooth. You see scratch marks left by other climbers' sharp crampon points. You know climbing on rock with crampons can be physical. You take a step and slip back. It's a game of inches. But you steady yourself using your rope. Climb with your feet, not jug on the rope. You hear a voice in your head lecturing you on technique. You check your posture, stand up, look ahead, take a step, a short one, and another. You're making progress. Leaving the rock band behind, you whisper, "There, I did it," to the rocks as if it was a mortal enemy. But you'll have the same combat on the return, and then you'll be drained of all that you are if you summit, when you summit. Approaching the Geneva Spur, you see an angle of Everest that you never have. Your eyes trace the right skyline. There's the route. Oh my, that's steep, you think. You feel shocked, surprised, a bit challenged. This may be more than you bargained for. A 1952 Swiss Everest team named the Geneva Spur. It serves as the gatekeeper to the South Col. It's your last obstacle before reaching your tent and rest. The boot path and the fixed line ease to your right and go straight up a 40-foot rock wall. You think about bouldering back home. I can do this. Once again, crampons on rock. You survey the area for a snow patch to plant your feet. Ah, there's one. Gently place your left foot on it. Slide the Jumar, take a step. Find another patch. Slide the Jumar, take a step. Your breathing picks up as you exercise. Then you pull on the rope, hoping a guide doesn't see you. Take a step, move higher. Then you top out. You're at the top of the rock buttress. Pausing, you bend over, hands on your down-covered knees. Your yellow 8,000-meter boots, a sharp contrast to the translucent snow. The boot path, now your friend, leads higher, but it feels like a sidewalk, flat, even, straight. Your pace picks up, knowing food, water, and rest are just minutes away. Another step, and then it comes into view. Another tiny village of yellow, green, and red tents. The constant winds keep the area mostly free of snow. Only large, flat plates of rock dot the area. It's buzzing with activity, with Sherpas mingling around, people looking for a large rock to hide behind to use their wag bag before leaving for the summit. Smiling, you wave at one of the Sherpas on your team. "Namaste," he calls out. "Welcome to the South Col. Welcome to the death zone." Climb on. This is Alan. Memories are everything.
The podcast on AlanArnette.com is sponsored by Summit Coach, helping aspiring climbers worldwide to reach their dreams.